You know, it's almost like your birthday with a package from China, so let's go. Alright, so when it comes to the shell, it's exactly the same like the previous one we have reviewed when all the other versions. And it has some pros and cons to that. Reason why, because when you're looking at the Hell sensor, like joysticks, they are great, but the D-pad, on the other hand, we're going to talk about it some more, because that is not my favorite thing. At the bottom we're going to get the speakers, the Type-C connection for charging and data transfer, and over here we have the option to implement an extra SD card. So I'm really happy they're using a Type-C port now. At the top we're going to get ourselves the output for the air, volume control and the on-off switch, and of course the shoulder and trigger buttons. And when it comes to the overall, let's say, noise of this thing, it's not bad at all. So when it comes to the shell itself, I do have a double feeling with this. Where I'm a big fan of the ANU devices, I must say this smaller model is not, let's say, my favorite one when it comes to the shell, but the overall comfortability is quite nice. When you're looking at the back, we have this very nice round shape and it will give you some extra grip, and it's absolutely way better than most flat surface devices. Then we're going to get ourselves the similar trigger buttons and the shoulder buttons. But I must say, when you're looking at the comfortability, I will give this thing an 8 out of 10. But let's take a close look at the software itself. So take consideration when you're going to get this, you need to set it up like your Android phone. There will be no emulators installed whatsoever. So one of the things I really like about this particular device is that it comes with a very cool looking interface. Not the background that is changing, but an overall when you're looking at the way how it works. Pressing the ANU button over here will grant you the option to having all kinds of features. Maybe you can hear the fan going quite, let's say, loud in this case. It's not even the loudest setting. Now it sounds like a freaking vacuum cleaner, but you can mute it if you want to. It's all what you want to do. So if you want to play a certain game that doesn't have a lot of power needed, you can always put it on mute if you want to. The same goes with the game mode over here. With the game mode we can change out the battery consumption, or how much watts it pulls from the battery. At the top we're going to find the usage. Here we're going to get ourselves the game mode, handle connection. It's a very cool feature. With the handle connection you can disconnect the buttons over here, nothing will be working at this point. So that's one of the cool features they implemented into the software. And that is what makes this thing very convenient to play. I've tried a couple of Android devices back in the day, but this thing is absolutely a very cool, let's say, overall software experience. But let's start with some games. First of all, where you can buy and play from the store, because there's some Play Store enabled, you can just basically get yourself games like Street of Rage number 4. Perfect when you're having physical controls. Okay, one thing I wanted to basically be clear about is the audio itself. So I have mixed feeling with the audio quality. It goes quite loud, I can't tell you that. But when it comes to certain like music, I noticed that the mid and high sounds a little bit too pitchy. But also let's talk about the 5.5 inch AMOLED display that comes inside of this thing. I don't know if the camera is really picking it up, but I can tell you this thing looks really stunning. What I do also notice when you're looking at, let's say, Nintendo Switch, I have shown cases with a couple of different versions. The OLED displays look always slightly different compared with an IPS panel. But not in a bad way. The colors are completely more vibrant in my opinion and very good. And of course it automatically shuts down when you're making a video. Great! No, stand by. But let's talk about how comfortable this thing actually is when playing a game. So first of all, of course Street of Rage is one of those games I love to try out. So when it comes to navigation of the D-pad, it's absolutely great, I can tell you that. But there's one particular thing I don't like about the D-pad. So ANU implemented the same kind of D-pad that they had with the different devices. And what you can see over here, that's the reason I'm putting it on so close an angle. You can see that it has a very long travel and it feels kind of smushy. But how does it actually result playing a game like Street of Rage? Already mentioned before, if you need to navigate through every single way, it is no problem. You do have this weird click feeling to certain directions. But if you need to do a super move, pressing forward twice very quickly, you can do it. But I've noticed when you're having a stress moment, need to do it very fast, sometimes my move doesn't come out that easily. And that's just due of the D-pad. The D-pad, in my opinion, they should make it, let's say, less smooshy and even make it like a micro switch one. Even I prefer that over this smooshy long travel D-pad. But let's talk about these, let's say, joysticks, because I must say that I was quite surprised by it. Simply because when you're looking at the way how they are having a very short travel. And that is something I really started to like. Okay, so I'm being in the game, because of the positioning, I'm always grabbing towards the joystick itself nowadays. But when you're actually playing it, that makes this thing so much more comfortable, especially when you're using the D-pad and you need to cramp up your hand a very strange way. It's absolutely not a pleasant way to play. But normally when we're having long travel joysticks, it's absolutely like a horrible thing to play certain games like Street of Rage 4. But because it's so quickly responsive, I can tell you it's absolutely great. And I ended up playing this game for at least a couple of hours with only using the freaking analog stick. And that is a miracle because I am a D-pad guy. But let's talk about the tiny buttons, because I am not a big fan of these things. They are way too small for my fingers. I have like quite fat fingers when it comes to these tiny buttons compared. Nevertheless, they are not bad, they have very long travel and a very nice click to it. But when you're actually playing, I do have the same problem I'm having with my Nintendo Switch. I just hate these very tiny buttons. But how did it actually work when playing some Street of Rage? I can tell you that I still really enjoy this game, where this is not the best control configuration. Combination with the freaking joystick and the tiny buttons, I did have a blast playing this. It's by the way one of the first games I actually downloaded for the ENEO. It's so much fun, absolutely. Especially the short travel of the analog stick makes this game very nice playable for a long time. So one of the things I also find very convenient, if you're going to press this tiny button over here, you can switch very easily back to the main menu, choose a different game if you want to. But another cool thing is if you want to change out to a different emulator, you can do it fairly easy. But let's get into the emulation, because there we do have some very cool performance. So first of all, let's play some PlayStation 1. And I can tell you that it even runs on 2 times the resolution, and it looks absolutely great. And this is one of the things we can able do with a device with so much power in the inside. You have way better performance even with PlayStation 1 starting to upscale stuff. Where with your typical Baukiri or Embernick handheld, we just have native resolution. That is not a bad thing, not at all in my opinion. But this is just like the extra cherry on top of the pie. I can tell the speakers go very loud when it comes to that. Let's lower it a little bit. Analog stick, I didn't configure that out of the box. But I also noticed when it comes to configuring that it works like a charm. When you're configuring the joystick itself, you can just play it like that. But again, even with a shmup, I did notice that it's absolutely not a pleasant experience. Okay, so first off, let's try some GameCube. And yeah, I must say that I did have some slowdowns here and there. What you can do when you're having issues with a game like F-Zero GX. So you can go into the menu itself. I have seen in one of the videos, Retro Game Course, saying that some of the things can have a bug inside that you need to keep clicking on the game settings or the mode. You can also mess around with the fan itself to keep them cool, but you can see that it does not getting really hot at the moment. But in consideration that this absolutely F-Zero GX was one of the more demanding systems out there, or at least the game. I also implemented the second frames per second meter simply because I had some issues, where you can see like my official one is being stuck on 5 FPS. No idea why, so it doesn't really communicate to the game system or the emulator itself. But we do have a playable situation. What you can also do is put it back on 50 FPS. So you're getting actually the PAL gameplay. So in that case you have way better overall performance. But again, it will dip down to 40. But if you're going to check out a different game, then you will see you're going to get way better overall performance without stuttering whatsoever. have been testing some couple of games and I've noticed that we actually can only use a certain amount of, let's say, resolutions on this. We cannot put it on 4K. Personally, I don't really care about it. We can even play it on the full HD resolution. Take consideration that you need to buy the Redream application to unlock the full HD functionality, but it's only a couple of euros in the store. But it runs perfectly on here. So when you only need to use the D-pad, pressing downwards and forwards and stuff like that, for finding games like these, like Dead Alive, it's no problem whatsoever. So when it comes to Dreamcast, we have some amazing overall performance. But now we're going to get into the real fighting games, in my opinion. And when you're going to get used to the D-pad, we can actually do all of the moves. So it's depending how is the learning curve. In my opinion, you do have a small learning curve when it comes to fighting games, because of the freaking annoying schmooshy long travel D-pad, but I can get some moves out without any problems. But when it comes to the PlayStation 2 emulation, I know a lot of you are curious about that, and I can tell you we had some very cool overall performance. It will not be of higher resolutions, but we're able to play it with the Aether SX2. I hope in the future the creator will keep updating it, because at this moment in this video there is no updating anymore. So compatibility is not 100%, but with, for example, a game like Tekken 4, we have some amazing overall performance. So we can really enjoy these old school classic games on the AE Neo.